Welcome to Season 2 of Feeding Families on the EcoParent Podcast Network. And don't forget to check out the new season of our other top podcast, Raising Kids Naturally. But before diving into this episode, a little shameless self-promotion from my son.
My dad started EcoParent when I was in the womb. Now it's pretty much the only parenting magazine still in print. If you like the podcast, you'll probably like the magazine too. You can subscribe online. You might also be interested in EcoParent's online courses, especially the kids nutrition and kids wellness courses. Stick around until the end of the episode and my dad will give you a discount code. Enjoy the show.
Are you looking for a hands-on, nature-based education that lets students experience their learning on multiple levels? For more than 45 years, Oak Meadow has been supporting families as a leader and pioneer in homeschooling and distance education, creating rewarding educational experiences that fit your family's unique needs and goals. Their secular, book-based curriculum can be used independently by homeschoolers or through enrollment in their teacher-supported distance learning school. Discover the high-quality, child-centered learning materials you need to give your student a happy, harmonious educational experience at oakmeadow.com.
The Feeding Families podcast is all about food and nutrition for kids. We bring you new ideas and inspiration for your kitchen and answers to your food questions to help you overcome the very real, very frustrating food-related challenges so many parents are trying to figure out. I'm your host, Jess Sherman, family wellness educator, author, practitioner of functional and holistic nutrition, and mother. I want you to develop unwavering confidence in the choices you make every day. So let's get into Feeding Families. Welcome back, families, to another episode. I am so glad you keep coming back because I have so much to talk about. As you know, the whole concept behind season 2 of our podcast is about nourishing our kids. And if you go back to episode 1 of season 2, I talk about all of the different ways that we nourish our kids and really trying to open up the word. And one of them is air. And this one trips people up a lot because, of course, we need to breathe, right? Of course, we need air. It's kind of, and so why are we even talking about it? But I really we need to talk about air. We need to talk about air quality. And, when we had Dr. Lisa Song on here and we were talking about the vagus nerve and breath as a way to activate health in our bodies and our microbiomes. Today, I want to talk about air quality. And so I was searching around for an expert to help me with this conversation because it's honestly not something that I know a ton about. I know it's a problem. I know that clean air is something that is absolutely essential for good health. But in terms of the nuances of that, I invited Mike to come and talk about it because he is an air quality expert. So Mike, thank you. Mike from Jaspr has come to chat about air quality. So thanks for coming, Mike.
Happy to be here. I'm glad we finally made it happen.
Yeah. I got 2 Jaspers a while ago and I just love them. And it makes such a difference in the house. And we're going to get into, the nuances about purification and filtration and HVAC and all of the different things that people need to know about air quality. But before we go there, what do you think people need to know about air quality? I mean, you've talked about you are what you breathe. You've talked about, everyone deserves clean air. Tell us what you want people to know about air quality.
I think it's just about increasing air awareness and air consciousness. And I wonder how long ago we even realized air was a thing. I'll start by sharing a little fun YouTube video I saw a couple months ago. There's 3 goldfish. There's this one old goldfish and these 2 baby goldfish. And the older goldfish swims by. They're all in a fishbowl. And he says, hey. And then he says, how's the water, boys? And then the little goldfish says, what's water? And I think that's how our experience with air is. I think most people don't really realize, if there wasn't a word for air is mostly just a word to people. Most people have never seen it. They've never really noticed that they were feeling it. Air is the one thing that you can take in, consciously and subconsciously. I think it's pretty fascinating that people talk about food, not eating or how to eat. We talk about water quality, not how to drink. We talk about how much to drink, but breath work and breathing gets talked about significantly more than the actual air we are breathing. It's pretty funny to see a room of people doing holotropic breathing and intense breath work in their moldy environment with dust mites and pollen, not realizing that the fuel that they're actually using to facilitate that breathing is quite impure, and the impact that would have. And I think ultimately what water is to fish, air is to humans. So fish don't typically swim away from the toxic contaminated water to go to the cleaner part of the ocean or the cleaner part of the lake because of the awareness is not there. You're in the water just like we are in the air. And it's neat because if you move your arms and hands around, you actually feel the air. It's not so different than water. Dancing is kind of just like swimming out of the water, and people actually can feel the air. And if you really pay attention to it, if you think about it, if you go outside and you guessed what temperature it was, you're probably going to guess within a few degrees. And how is it that you're doing that? Well, that's because your skin has temperature sensors built in to detect what temperature the air is. Temperature is only felt because when you ask what the temperature is outside, what you're really saying is what is the temperature of the air outside? If you feel a cool breeze, air moves very much like water with currents. So once you kind of realize, oh, I guess I do have a temperature sensor in my skin. And if you have ever been to, a humid environment versus a dry environment, think Vegas or Arizona versus Texas or Toronto in the summer or something, or the rainforest versus the desert, or the dry sauna versus the steam room, like, what dry skin feels like, and your throat feeling dry. You can also detect relative humidity on your skin. So those are like the two most basic functions, especially temperature, because they really impact our immediate comfort. And humans really, we love comfort. So we're super attuned to the temperature. We look on our weather app to see what the temperature is. We don't really need a weather app though. You can go outside, especially if you put your hands up, you can pretty reasonably accurately determine the temperature. If you ask 5 people the temperature, they usually guess within a few degrees of each other. We don't need to check the weather for that. And you have the ability to do the same thing with carbon dioxide, CO2, with pollution and particulate, and even VOCs, definitely with mold spores. We have all these sensors built in that we're not super good at listening to. And once you're able to listen to those said sensors, you're able to modify your environment and your way of being. So when you normally would say, hey, it's a nice day outside, usually what someone means when they say nice day, they mean temperature is warm, skies are blue, and it won't rain. Pretty much. We narrow weather to, we're mostly talking about temperature, but it's will it be sunny? Is it going to rain? And will it be warm or cold? And I actually, when I look at the weather, I usually look at the air quality first, because if it's a super clean air day outside today, I don't care if it's cloudy and cool. I could deal with that. What a great day to go for a run and to do some exercise and like exert myself outside on this beautiful, cool, clean air day. On the contrary, it could be a really hot day, or it could be a warm day, and it could be a blue sky. But there could be a huge amount of pollen, mold, pollution, wildfire smoke breathing coming in the area. If that's the case, I don't want to go for a run today or for a hike or exert myself and increase my rate of my breathing rate. So it's amazing. Like even when I travel, I really pay attention to the air quality. It wasn't always this way, but when you start to when we grew up, we all just drank tap water. To anybody who's like over 30, 25 maybe even, water was just water. And then in the last several years, our societal water quality awareness has become more attuned. And now you prefer filtered water more likely. 87% of people who take our quiz on our website already filter their water. That was not the case 5, 10, 20 years ago. Now people can actually taste when they go to a restaurant and they get tap water. They can taste the chemicals in the water. They can taste poor water quality because the water quality awareness increased. You had cleaner water that you were given the privilege of drinking. And now polluted, chemical, whatever water, you can taste it. So you're using the sensors on your tongue to determine what's filtered water and unfiltered water. Water is not just water. It can be heavily contaminated. And you can detect those contaminants when you're given the opportunity. So My favorite thing ever is when people start breathing really filtered air at home. And then if they try to turn off their Jaspr or on their air filtration or go to someone else's house that has more polluted air or go to a city that has more contaminated air, you can feel a difference massively. So that contrast is required to be able to get more in tune with the sensors that we have.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm grateful for people like you who are bringing that to our more conscious awareness because it is. I mean, I think sometimes you can tell when you're in a stuffy room, and you're like, oh, I need to go get some fresh air or I need to open a window. A lot of people can tell that, but I think you're bringing the nuances to it in a really helpful way. One thing that really surprised me when I got my Jasper, two things really surprised me. One was that it fires up hard when I cook. And that really surprised me. And since then I've heard you talk a little bit about cooking and indoor air quality. So let's go there and just talk about like why does it do that? I've heard you say before that indoor cooking is one of the biggest problems with indoor air, one of the sources of poor indoor air quality. Can we just talk about that for a second? Is that something everyone should be worried about?
We sure can. Not worried, but made more aware because it's pretty easy and approachable problem to deal with, actually. So that's great. It's quite easy to solve for the problem. Cook indoors is already a fairly new concept. It still boggles my mind that we've actually invented a word for outside. Like, isn't that just home? Isn't that just where we live? And then in the last 100 years, we've made these airtight boxes. Originally it was a roof over your head to keep the elements out, the animals out, the wind out, a place where you could sleep comfortably and not get attacked by predators and keep your stuff safe so not all your stuff gets soaked when it rains and blown away from the wind. That was like the original structure. So, it was a roof over the head. I don't think when you go camping in the woods, when you leave your tent or your cabin, you don't really call that going outside. It's a lot more of a fluid way of being. And when people, now that we've created these indoor boxes where we spend over 95% of our times, and people who live like in the Northeast and in cold climates, that 90 to 95% could be more like 99%. A lot of people, the only time that they spend outside is walking to the car. A lot of people have their car in their garage and they drive to the office and they park and sometimes it's condo to tower and they actually spend zero time outside, like almost none. So just first of all, realizing that we've created this weird situation where people are like, I want to go to the nature and go outside. It's like, realize that wherever your suburban house is built was a forest not very long ago.
I'll just interject there. Like, what's the problem with that from an air quality perspective in terms of the differences between outdoor air, indoor air, and what that's doing to your body?
Well, the differences are the world's greatest air purifier is planet Earth. It's the nature. It's the UV from the sun. It's the hydroxyl radicals from the wind. You'll notice you don't walk down the street and see mold growing on the road or piles of dust. Mold is something we have growing inside. Dust on your windowsills or your surfaces or your table. This is an indoor problem. This is what happens when you separate where you live from nature. This is not normal. So we've created these little airtight boxes that are, it's like, the moldy sandwich in the Tupperware. If you never put the lid on, there would be no mold in that Tupperware. It won't get moldy outside. These are indoor problems. So air comes from outside. That's our indoor air comes from outside. So we've just added these artificial barriers between us and the planet, essentially. So what happens then is, of course, your CO2 that you're breathing gets trapped inside. And I'll get into the cooking. So your cooking, your cleaning products, your hairsprays, your pets, your plants. Plants want to be outside. Kids want to be outside. Animals want to be outside. And then at some point, we get softer and weaker and we get addicted to comfort. We end up going inside, or we can control our temperature. It's pretty incredible that we have that ability. So, I was sitting outside where it was about 104, 105 degrees. I came inside because I'm low on battery, but I would prefer to be outside with fresh air with uncomfortable temperature than in my little artificial box with my artificial lights. I don't enjoy this way of living. And when you think about cooking is almost like a little mini fire. You're using extreme heat indoors. So just the same way that water boils, it's very visual. You can see how water boils. But, water will evaporate even without extreme heat, just at a slower rate. And when you cook, there's a reason why you smell cooking in a house, is because you're aerosolizing that food. If you put the food down, you may not smell it a little bit, but once you start cooking it, it's quite fragrant. You're now aerosolizing those particles and particulate. When you heat things up, they tend to go into the air more. So cooking is a problem because, first of all, range hoods don't typically work very good. And one thing, if we're going to cover anything today, I want to make sure we'll segue into the fact that there's a lot of things that someone can do for free right away, easy tips and tricks that don't involve moving to the rainforest and they don't involve buying a Jaspr, that are some little wins that people can get. And I think that's the best place to really start. But the cooking is an issue because we're taking all of these. Like if you use your barbecue inside, you'll die because the carbon monoxide will smoke you out. If you use it outside, you'll be totally fine. You'll have a delicious dinner. So the stove is kind of just like a less aggressive barbecue. Um, when you cook, especially proteins at high heat, it creates PAH, which is polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. These are the very thing that when we were restoring cities from wildfire and smoke damage, that we would be testing for. Hexavalent chromium, heavy metals, PAH. You get chemical reactions when you have high heat and proteins. And you'll notice it's not just when you're cooking bacon. You can be using a cast iron pan or stainless steel and avocado oil and asparagus, a very organic asparagus, a very clean meal. And even that is going to create a lot of particles in your air. Just because it's good for you to eat, it doesn't mean it's good for you to breathe. And then what happens is all those airborne particles, they get trapped in your carpets, in your clothing, in your bedding, in your furniture, in your insulation. Anything in the home that is porous, that could get wet by water, can absorb air. So when we test a home for pollen, there's typically, even in a bad allergy day, there's usually more pollen on your pillowcase and your carpet and your couch and your bed than there is outside, because all the pollen came indoors and then it settles on your surfaces and it stays trapped there. So if you're not filtering your air or deep HEPA vacuuming, deep cleaning your house all the time, all of those pollutants, the cooking, the pollen, the mold, the debts, the dust mites, the insect parts, it just gets very embedded in our environment. And then we're sleeping and living within it. So yeah, cooking is great. Cooking inside bad. If you can, open some doors, open some windows, put that range hood on high speed. And I'll get more into tips later. But yeah, it's the cooking indoors that is a very new human thing that we haven't been doing for a very long time. Creating an airtight box and then using high heat and gas to cook inside of it. It's a new thing. So I actually cook probably half of our meals. We have like a camping style stove, and we either cook in the backyard or we go to the lake, and we cook outside as often as possible.
Yeah, I was really surprised even what you said with the range hood. Like if I'll cook one of the things I really liked about getting a Jasper is because it called my attention to that. I was like, "Oh, wait. What? It's detecting what? But we have a clean house. Wait, what?" Right? So it really called my attention to that. And then when I turned on the stove, I was like, "Oh man. Okay. Well, I knew that we have a propane stove because of where we live, but I knew that you should always have the range hood on when you cook with propane. So I put that on and Jasper's still going, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, Jasper, come on, save me." And then slowly it'll come down and stuff like that. So that was really surprising. One question I get sometimes about air quality is what about, you mentioned, how we build our homes is kind of ridiculous with these airtight like boxes. And but some people will tell me like, "Oh, well, we have an air system, whether it's an HVAC or it's a whatever, and or we open our windows or what have you." So what can you tell us between that kind of scenario and an actual purifier in your home? Is there a difference?
Good question. Yeah, big difference. And the example you gave about, how you said like when you cooked, your air would get compromised and then you'd watch it come down. So a crazy little experiment. If I take a match, which is it's a very fine particle, pretty harmful, and I light it in a bathroom. If you put a Jasper in a bathroom and you light your match, it's going to go red. It's going to be back down to green in 20, 30 seconds. It's going to go up. It's going to go down. It's a small space. If I put an air quality monitor in that bathroom, no Jasper, it could take 5 or 6, even 8 hours till the air quality comes back down. So you have the Jasper in your home, so you're seeing how fast the air quality comes back down. What's staggering is how long those particles and pollutants stay in someone's home if you don't filter your air at all. And where do you think they go? On your surfaces, in your dust, on your carpets, in your clothes, in your beds. They bind to the surfaces. They get trapped along the way. So in terms of the HVAC system, So the HVAC system is the lungs of your home, and it is what facilitates the breathing and moves everything around. And its purpose is to do two things primarily, but it's heat and cool the air. And how does it do that? It does it by mixing all the air up. So if you think about a swimming pool, you have this like gas heater in a centralized location, and then the pumps are what move the water around. So you need that combination of a heater and then the water circulation to be able to distribute that water all around the whole pool. Otherwise, it would just be a like a furnace and it wouldn't be heating anything. It's like a fireplace. The fireplace that has like that vent or fan or motor can heat the whole home. If you just have a fireplace, it's quite ineffective because it's not harnessing its heat very efficiently. So your HVAC furnaces and air conditioners haven't really been innovated in decades, which is something that I intend to eventually tackle as well. But what people try to do is they take their existing furnace and then occasionally, so most people just use like a furnace filter that you get at Home Depot or something like that. Costco, whatever. Those are fine. I actually use like a MERV 8. I buy the lowest rated furnace filter I can buy because the point of your furnace filter is to keep, it's literally called a furnace filter. It's a furnace it's a filter for your furnace. It's designed to keep your furnace safe. It's not designed to clean your air. There's nothing, sometimes the marketing now is a little bit misleading, but it's so the dog hair, a screw, a nail, a clump of dust doesn't get into your HVAC system and destroy your motor and your fan and your blower and all that. No one sells you a furnace pretending it's an air filtration system. So when you go and put on a heavy duty, a MERV 13, a MERV 17, a big heavy duty filter, you massively restrict the airflow. So we actually tried before the Jaspr you see today was created, but we spent the first couple of years actually trying to create a whole home HVAC style filter. And as much as we tried and we really wanted to bring it to market, but we couldn't because it was so ineffective. We bought all of them. We tested all of them. First of all, it only can work if your furnace fan is already running. And for an efficient system, you don't want your furnace fan running all the time. You want it heating and cooling when it needs to, but it shouldn't be running all the time. Then you really restrict the airflow. So now your blower and your motor or your fan, they have a pressure drop and they're working overtime. You know, if this is like your car, your RPMs are full throttle all the time. It's unnecessary. And it really reduces the efficiency of your HVAC system. So it's not that good anymore at heating and cooling. The other big thing is you're not able to focus your cleaning efforts. So I want the cleanest possible air in my bedroom where I sleep. Maybe if I have a home office, but like where I sleep first, and then my main living room to deal with all the cooking particles. If my filter is hiding in the HVAC system, first of all, I'm now cleaning the crawl space in my basement or like a random dead hallway space as much as my baby's bedroom. We've really diluted our cleaning power. And by the time the air gets into your furnace system, a lot of it's already dispersed around the home and didn't go through that particular channel. So it's too late. Like some of the schools that we worked with during COVID, they were looking at putting HVAC style air filtration systems on the top of the roof of the school. But the problem is if a kid in that class is breathing COVID infected air, it's like, what do you think's better? Having an air filter directly in that room, filtering it right then and there, or having a filter all the way on the roof where the air is supposed to go all the way up there and then go back down to the classroom. And the nice thing about a distributed, decentralized system is each unit has its own sensor. So it's detecting contaminants in each room, and it has its own fan. So it's actually increasing the general airflow in the whole house, which is why even if you put a Jaspr in your bedroom, it's giving your bedroom the cleanest possible air while contributing to the whole home, because still air is coming into that room and going back to the furnace. So I like using a tool for what it's designed for. And it is possible, by the way, to have an HVAC system that is in a wonderful air filtration system. If someone's building a custom house from scratch and they really want an embedded HVAC custom system, you can do it. It's about $40,000 and it can be done. I don't see the point.
Because it's so generalized. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, why spend $40,000 when you can spend $2,500 and just back in the day, you would have like, if you wanted music at home, you'd have like this heavy duty speaker, and it'd be way too loud, and the bass would be crazy. And then in all the other rooms, you can't even hear the music. All you feel is this obnoxious bass. And then along came Sonos, where it's like, wow, I could have a decentralized whole home sound system where I have lovely, reasonable volume music in all of the rooms. So I can just have music in one room. I can just get one and then I can add more on. So Jasper is kind of like Sonos in the sense that it's more of a decentralized air filtration system versus having this one giant speaker in your living room and expecting that to cover the whole home. So that's sort of the way I approach the whole HVAC situation.
Hey parents, this episode of the Feeding Families podcast is being brought to you by the Canadian School of Natural Nutrition. Want to learn to cook healthier for your family? Looking for meal planning and food shopping tips for your busy lifestyle? Maybe you'd like to brush up on some cooking techniques and get some holistic nutrition and recipe tips. The Holistic Culinary Certificate workshops offered by CSNN are open to everyone. Some of the workshops include cooking for kids, alternative baking and raw sweets, probiotic foods and beverages, and international cuisines, just to name a few. They're available at select CSNN branches. You can learn more at csnn.ca/holistic-family or follow the links in the show notes. I think there's a difference between filtration, purification, and airflow. And they're all helpful in a certain way, but they're all kind of different. And I think those terms get confused sometimes. They're like, okay, well, we'll open windows and we'll get airflow, and that's going to clean the air in our home. Or we will filter, and that's going to clean. But purification is a totally different thing.
So yeah, windows are a great point. Like when people ask what's the best thing they can do for their air, I usually tell them like move to Patagonia or move to Vancouver Island. If you go live in the rainforest, far from civilization, especially in a temperate climate where you can have your doors and windows all the way open all the time and not even have walls, that's your best bet for sure. But if you are finding yourself, like most of us, living in an artificial type box, then now we have an issue, especially because the outdoor air, like it's really funny. People are like, it's stuffy inside. I need to go outside and get a breath of fresh air. And then you go outside like, it's like, that's not fresh air. That's just regular air. Your inside air is so high of carbon dioxide because it hasn't been breathing that regular outdoor polluted city air feels so nice to breathe. And so if you keep an eye on your outdoor air, if it's a really good clean air day outside, great day to open doors and windows and everything. You can't beat it. But if there's a lot of pollen, pollution, mold, industrial stuff, all your neighbors are spraying Roundup, or if you live in a farm community where there's all these fertilizers being sprayed into the air, or dust storms, or wildfire smoke, sometimes the outdoor air is not that clean. It's like, if you have a swimming pool, is the best way to clean your water pumping in pond water? Maybe not. You still, even though you want to get your water from a source, you then filter that water anyways. So a pool and a home are not so different. It's like our general water outside is super contaminated. So the city blasts it with chemicals to make it safe. And then we bring it back into our homes and then we refilter it. It's like, that's just the best way we got. If you can go to a natural spring, awesome. That's the best, but it's not always super practical for everybody to go to a spring and shower and bathe in the spring. So we do our best. And when it comes to air, it's the same thing. You are probably going to live in a condo or a home or an apartment, and you're probably going to be intaking a bunch of bad air. So the unfortunate part of spending 95% of your time indoors is that you spend 95% of your time indoors and it's not great. The blessing is you have this little sanctuary that's this little confined bubble where you get to be the master of your environment. You can control the lighting, the temperature, the humidity, the air quality, unless you have a 20,000 square foot house, in which you could probably afford to do it for that place too. But like the smaller your environment, the more cost effective it is for you to optimize that environment, which is actually pretty empowering.
For sure. Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about health effects, but I also want to talk about top tips of things people can do. You've already mentioned a little bit of like opening your windows when it's a nice day, like when it's thankfully that's now being reported on weather apps and things like air quality index and things like that. So I think what I'm hearing is pay attention to that, opening windows. Anything else you can think of? You did talk about the exhaust fans, but that most of them don't work. Most of them are too high, I think, right? But are there good ones out there that people could use?
So yeah, most range hoods are too high. Definitely doing the Kleenex or the napkin test to check if your bathroom fans and your range hoods are even working in the first place. A lot of times they're not. And check where your range hood above your stove is even venting. A lot of time, people's range hoods are venting in the cabinet above or in their attic. They're not actually even venting outside. So that's a really easy win, is just making sure that thing vents outside. Another thing you can do is put a timer on your bathroom switch. I love that one. So you can buy like for like $20, $30 at Home Depot, Walmart, Amazon, wherever. Get a little switch. So when you get out of the shower, you can hit the 2 hour button, because like turning it on while you shower is not enough. Your towel can absorb quite a lot of water. And then as that towel evaporates, all that water goes into your house. So it's a great thing to make sure that your bathroom is venting out all the humidity and moisture after a shower. So like a 2 hour timer is a great hack. When you're using your dishwasher,
Well, I was just gonna say we replaced our bathroom one, and I was shocked at how terrible the one we took out was, and it was also gunked up. Like they need to be cleaned as well, right? So that I would add that too. Okay, what about the dishwasher?
I bet you your next one will gunk up a lot less because you're filtering the air in your home now. It only got gunked up because you had dirty air. It wasn't like it got there any other way. The dishwashers can create a huge amount of chemicals in your house. You're taking hot water and soap. So when you're using your dishwasher, just like cracking windows is a good idea when you're cooking, it's also a really good idea to crack windows when you're using your dishwasher. If you're filtering your air, that's also super helpful. But if let's say you don't have any air filtration, the same way you'd crack doors and windows when you cook. When you're using your dryer has a vent that vents outside. Dishwashers don't. That's why it often stinks like soap in your house when you're using your dishwasher. So that's another like easy win. Not wearing your shoes. Don't wear shoes indoors. 95% of shoes tested have fecal matter on them. And if you walk on the carpets, on the surfaces, and then, kids play, dogs roam, adults walk, and that all gets kicked up into your air and into your environment, and you're just breathing poop unnecessarily. Diapers, for sure, in nurseries, get those diapers outside as quickly as you can. Do not have a diaper stash that you keep in your baby's bedroom, because if it smells like poop, it is poop, and if it's poop, it's bacteria. And if your baby has a diaper pail in its room and you think that's okay, I recommend you spend one night with it in your room and see how you feel. And that's what I did with my wife and my daughter. I suggested that she takes the diaper pail out. She thought that'd be so I said the price of tuition is we have to sleep with the diaper pail in our room tonight, and she's like, no. So I'm like, if we wouldn't do it, why is our baby Aria doing it? So never again did the diaper pail appear in Adele's or Aria's bedroom.
It brings up a good point, because if you smell it, there's a particulate, right? And so I don't often think of that if you smell it, it's also getting into your body and into your lungs. And
If you're smelling it, because it's going in you right now, and like same thing, like rubber gym mats. When you like smell that rubbery floor, it's like, yeah, because that rubber is off-gassing, it's aerosolizing, it's decaying, and you are putting that rubber in your body right now. That's why you smell it. That's what smelling is. If you lick it, you'll taste it. If you pour it in your water, you might also taste it. And if you breathe it and you have sensors in your nose, you are smelling that thing. You can identify what item you're putting in your body with the sense of smell.
yeah, which brings up the whole notion of the cleaners you bring into your home, the fragrances, the air fresheners, the bounce sheets you put in your dryer. I mean, all of those things are, if you're smelling it, it's going into your bodies, and if it's chemicals, that's a toxin that your body has to then figure out what to do with.
Someone once called buying their Jaspr or just investing in clean air the laziest way to be healthy, because it could take a lot of willpower to exercise and do your yoga, do your breath work, your red light therapy, your saunas, your cold plunges. I love a lot of these things, but it can take a lot of willpower up. So can eating a particular diet that doesn't feel like natural to you and it feels difficult to do. Drinking clean water and breathing clean air is effortless. It's easy. It's plug and purify. Buy filtered water, buy a water filter. Yeah, it costs money for sure, but at least it doesn't cost money and data. You don't have to drive to the gym to breathe clean air. And like trying to be healthy can be very overwhelming in this modern world. And the list never ends. So I try to just focus. That's why I've chosen this journey. All journeys are valid, but I like this one because if I'm filtering my air, it doesn't really matter if it's mold or pollen or VOCs or cooking. I'm not able to fix the source issue. So I'm fixing it on the solution level. It's just like you're not willing to go get a spring, so you buy a water filter. It's cheaper and easier and a better investment for someone to buy a water filter than it is to trek to a spring and bring water back in glass jugs. It's quite nice that they can actually bring polluted chlorine water in their house and filter out that chlorine. Pretty good deal for what, $1 a day, $2 a day. So like, less than if somebody has an air purifier and the annual cost is $398 a year, it's about $1 a day, and they have clean air for life. It's less than a cup of coffee to have clean air in your home forever. So when I started thinking about it that way, I reframed it and I was a consumer of air purifiers long before I created one. And that's because I'm like, oh, wait, this is the best deal ever. Like $1 a day, I get clean air all night long while I sleep. I don't even have to go anywhere for it. So yeah, it's a low hanging fruit.
Yeah. Yeah, it is a low-hanging fruit. It's like one of those passive things that you don't really have to think about. You just you set it and you go. And for parents, for busy parents who are listening to this podcast, that's what we're looking for. We're looking for the easiest route to health because we're busy, we're multitasking, we've got so much on our plate. We want easy things. And I know I didn't consider. I knew that air was important because I've worked a lot with kids that have a lot of mold and mycotoxins and things like that. But beyond that, I think we've gotten to a point now where we should probably all filter our water. We should probably all filter our air because of how our world is. It just is what it is. And thank goodness we have these tools that we can, fairly inexpensively, like on the continuum of things, just make sure that the air and the water that are going into our body, they're so fundamental to our existence that it's almost too simple to think about needing to think about it, right?
If you drink 2 liters of water a day, maybe three if you're a big time water drinker, but you breathe 11 to 20,000 liters of air per day. So the consumption is not even on the same playing field. And if someone, you could go 3 weeks without food, 3 days without water, and 3 minutes without air. And we don't even come close to realizing it because air feels so abundant. But try an air fast. See how long you go. You'll literally have permanent brain damage in a few minutes. So for that reason, and humans are so good at adapting to our environment. It's fine. It's fine. That's why the awareness here is really what's key. I dream of a world where we don't need any air purifiers or any filters again. I think us humans will get there. I think it's going to be a long, hard road to get there. But ideally, if we were building more nature-centric communities and we could stop putting so much stuff in the air and stop polluting at the rate that we are, and not cut down big old ancient trees that are cleaning the world for us, if we could do more of that, and not have little people driving big cars one at a time, I don't think we'll need air purifiers forever. I think this is a temporary means to an end. I mean, I still think it'll be super valid, like for wildfire smoke. There's still also naturally occurring air quality issues, but I don't think it'll be as necessary as it is now. I'm glad that these conversations are happening, and there's products now that are more environmentally friendly, and the prices are going up for now, but they're not going to keep going this way. Things are going to hit a deflationary point where like the Jaspr used to be $2,000. Then we got it down to $13.99. Now we got it down to $9.99. If you are good at being efficient, you should actually be able to lower your prices, not raise them. So I'm very optimistic that now with the advent of new and more greater technology and starting better products, and primally pure and branch basics, like you could go and get premium products. Well, if they do good, they'll make a lot of money, and then someone else is going to either make a better product or the same product for cheaper. And I encourage others to do the same with Jaspr. If someone can make a better product for cheaper and support it better, people should buy that one. And then the pressure is on us to either make it more affordable or make the product better. So I think that the market and the natural flow of things takes care of all of this. So I think there'll be a really beautiful change for amazing available solutions at more affordable rates, and I don't think we're far from it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you for making the Jasper. I really do notice a difference when I got them, because I did have air purifiers in my house, but they weren't don't I don't think they were doing much. And you've done some comparisons and things. Yeah, it's sort of too small and not when I looked at that, when I compared them side by side, I was like, oh well, it's not sealed. Like it's got a lot of. I was like, how could that be actually purifying the air? It was definitely filtering it because it had a triple filter kind of thing, and you could see that it was filtering, but I wasn't so sure. And I had them side by side, and one was detecting and the other one wasn't. So it's one of those things that we gotta learn about it, and we gotta know what we're looking for. But there is quite a lot out there now that is not good, and then there's some good stuff out there, and we want to make sure that what we're getting is actually doing what we want it to do. Same with water purifiers. Is it doing what we want it to do? Do you do before and after tests? How do you know? How do you test quality?
Oh, all the time. We're actually doing a sleep study starting August 1st for 100 people. So if anyone hears this, and this episode comes out before August 1st, then we will actually have applications on our website where we're sending 100 Jaspers out to 100 different people to do a very organized sleep study. Because we always get people saying, I've had air purifiers my whole life. I just put a Jasper in, and my Aura or my Whoop or my Fitbit or my Apple Watch, my sleep score just went up 40% instantly, and it's staying there. So I don't like most traditional studies, and it breaks my heart because most studies we get are funded by fast food, they're funded by pharma, they're funded by people with bad intent and don't have helpful solutions. So instead of us hiring some third party lab who basically, when you go to a third party lab for studies, all they do is they say, what's your marketing goal? And let's work backwards to achieve that for you. Because if they didn't, nobody would go there. So I would rather our studies be done by real people in their homes. Number one, you should feel much better. It should be easier if you put a Jasper in your bedroom on fan speed 2 and use it for a couple nights, then try on the third night turning it off. You will start to panic. I bring my Jasper when I travel now, and I try to find hotels that have cleaner air because it's horrible. It's like going into an Uber with that Christmas tree air freshener. It's not a good experience. I call air fresheners air makeup because if you Google air purification or air freshener is Googled like 20 times more. People are just trying to cover up odors with odors.
I look forward to seeing that. I look forward to seeing that sleep study because I work with a lot of kids who can't sleep very well, and I always suggest air.
Well, send them over. We're going to definitely want some kids in there.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So if they're gonna do that, if they're let's say they have their own air purifier and they want to try that experiment, window open or window closed?
Well, that's more nuanced. It really depends on their environment. If they're in an area with bad air, we close windows. If they have good air, we open them. So it's more about checking what the air is outside. Mostly the AQI is pretty accurate. It's almost available everywhere. You just Google air quality, then your city name, and Google has it, Apple has it, the weather networks all have it now. I actually don't mind the Air Visual app by IQ Air. I don't love their air purifier, but I do like their air quality app. The air purifier is effective. It's just really loud and ugly, but it does clean the air really well.
Well, yeah, people can do their little experiments. Again, I think it's, when we bring these things that seem unconscious to the conscious level and we start thinking about them, we start to put habits and systems in place so that we don't have to think about them anymore. It's the same thing with food, it's the same thing with sleep, it's the same thing with water. It's like we call our attention to it, we figure it out, we get a system in place, and then we don't have to think about it as much anymore. And I think air purification is one of those things. It has been for me anyway. Thanks, Mike. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate your expertise. And how can people find out more about the study and more about the Jaspers?
We'll do a lot of posting on our website and social media about it. So at Jasper Co. So at sign JASPRCO on Instagram is a great place to find us. And then, we've been working together for a little bit. So if anybody ever wants a discount, we don't really do discounts on our website and we don't really run much ads. We want to make things as affordable for people as possible. So you have a code that people can use if they ever want to try Jasper. And we have a life changing guarantee. If it's not remarkably making someone's life better in the first 60 days, let us know. We'll give them all their money back and take back the Jaspers. We want people to do things. We don't want anyone out there who bought the product and isn't blown away with it. That's not what we're trying to do here. If that's the case, take your money back and invest in something that does make a difference for you. Luckily for us, that's way under 1% of the time. So we're able to make that offer to people. It's great.
Also, just another one little blast plug for just supporting smaller companies that are doing good work. And you ran a campaign just recently to support the rainforests and support other people who are trying to get to the root of the problem, which is we need to keep our planet alive and our air purification system, which is our trees, alive. And so I really appreciated that initiative.
That's the real thing we got to do. This is just a Band-Aid for now.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Mike. I appreciate your time.
My pleasure.
If you enjoyed this podcast, be sure to subscribe. And if you feel called to, share it with another family who needs to hear it. There are more tools from me at jesssherman.com/learn and jesssherman.com/membership, alongside all the great resources you'll find at EcoParent. Things are changing for kids, and the more we come together in conversation as parents, the more we can find ease and joy as we raise the next generation together. I look forward to seeing you back here next time. Until then, keep at it. You have the most important job in the world.
Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed the episode. If so, please consider leaving a review and subscribing to the podcast. If you think this podcast is great, our host, Jess Sherman, has condensed everything you need to know to nourish your family into a truly fantastic 7-hour video course. You can learn more at ecoparent.ca/learn. It will change the way you think about feeding your family. You might also be interested in our Kids Wellness course, taught by Dr. Leslie Solomonian. As a thank you for listening, I'd like to offer you a 15% discount on any one of our online courses or any subscription to EcoParent magazine. Just head on over to ecoparent.ca, hit the Eco Shop button in the navigation bar, and use code FEEDING15 at checkout. All caps, no spaces, that's FEEDING15. Till next time.